Hi everyone, welcome to ACE Anatomy. I'm Dr. Divya Desa. This video, I will explore the normal basalis, the inferior view of the skull, also known as the skull base. This region is a structural and functional masterpiece, forming the floor of the cranial cavity and serving as a passageway for critical nerves and vessels. We will walk through its key bony components, foramina and anatomical landmarks, helping you visualize their spatial relationships and clinical relevance. So let's begin our journey through the base of the skull, where anatomy meets precision. Study of the cranium from the inferior aspect is called norma basalis. So before we dive into the details, let's become familiar with some of the bones of norma basalis. So this is the maxilla, the zygomatic bone. Here we have the palatine bone. This is ulnar. We have the sphenoid bone, the temporal bone, the occipital bone, and a small portion of parietal bone is also seen in this region. Let's look at the boundaries of norma basalis. Anteriorly, it is formed by the incisor teeth, posteriorly by the superior nuchal lines, and laterally on each side it is formed by the rest of the teeth on the alveolar arch, the zygomatic arch, the posterior root of zygoma, and the mastoid process. For the sake of convenience, norma basalis is divided into anterior, middle, and posterior parts. The hard palate and the alveolar arch are included in the anterior part. An imaginary horizontal line passing through the anterior margin of foramen magnum separates the posterior part from the middle part of norma basalis. Now let's look at the features and attachments of anterior part of norma basalis. The posterior border of the hard palate forms the junction of anterior and middle parts of norma basalis. The posterior nasal spine is a spinous projection from its middle in the medial fillet. The musculus uvulae is attached to the posterior nasal spine. The alveolar arch possesses the sockets for the roots of upper teeth. So the number of sockets, it depends upon the number of roots. So there is a single socket for each of the incisors, the canines and the premolars. And there are 3 sockets for each of the upper molars. The bones contributing to the hard palate is formed by the palatine process of maxilla, which contributes to the anterior 2/3 of the hard palate, and the posterior 1/3 of the hard palate is formed by the horizontal plates of the palatine bone. The bony plate here is marked by several depressions which are produced by the palatine glands. The cruciform suture is formed by the intermaxillary, interpalatine and palatomaxillary sutures. The incisive fossa is present anteriorly in the median plane of the hard palate. Incisive foramen, the right and left, they pierce its corresponding sides. The greater palatine foramina is present behind the lateral part of the palatomaxillary suture. A groove is observed between this greater palatine foramen and the incisive fossa, which is made by this greater palatine vessels. The lesser palatine foramina are about 1 to 3 in number, and they are present in the pyramidal process of palatine bone and located just behind the greater palatine foramen on each side. The palatine crest is a curved ridge observed in the hard palate near its posterior border. The palatine aponeurosis is attached to the palatine crest. The premaxilla is a triangular piece of maxilla holding the 4 incisor teeth. It is a separate bone in most of the vertebrates. Now let's study the middle part of the norma basalis. For the sake of convenience, it is divided into median area and 2 lateral areas, the right and the left. Now let's study the features of the median area of the middle part of norma basalis. We have the posterior nasal apertures, which are also known as coeli. The posterior border of the omer separates the 2 choanae. The ala of the vomer are two bony plates formed by the splitting of vomer superiorly. It articulates here with the rostrum of the sphenoid. The omerovaginal canal is formed between the lateral border of each ala of vomer and the vaginal process of the medial pterygoid plate. The palatovaginal canal is the canal between the vaginal process of medial pterygoid plate and the sphenoidal process of the palatine bone. This canal leads anteriorly into posterior wall of pterygopalatine fossa. For the structures passing through the various canals and foramen, you can refer my video on the foramina of skull. The link for this is given in the description box. The broad bar of bone, which we see behind this ala, is formed by the continuation of inferior surface of the body of the sphenoid and the basilar part of the occipital bone. It extends up to the foramen magnum. The pharyngeal tubercle is a median elevation just in front of the foramen magnum. This pharyngeal tubercle, it gives attachment to the highest fibers of superior constrictor muscle and also to the pharyngeal raphe. The longest capitis is inserted on the basilar part of the occipital bone just lateral to this pharyngeal tubercle, and rectus capitis anterior is inserted on each side just in front of these occipital condyles. Let's now look at the features of the lateral area of the medial part of Norma Basalis. The pterygoid process are located just behind the posterior ends of alveolar arch, and these processes they descend vertically downwards from the junction of the body and the greater wing of sphenoid. These pterygoid processes they consist of a lateral pterygoid plate and a medial pterygoid plate. The pterygoid plates unite anteriorly in the upper part to enclose a fossa called the pterygoid fossa. The lower ununited portions, they form a pterygoid fissure which is filled by the pyramidal process of palatine bone. The anterior surface of the pterygoid processes, they form the posterior boundary of pterygopalatine fossa. The lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate, it forms the medial wall of infratemporal fossa and also gives origin to the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle. The medial surface of lateral pterygoid plate forms the lateral wall of the pterygoid fossa and gives origin to the deep head of medial pterygoid muscle. The lateral surface of the medial pterygoid plate forms the medial wall of the pterygoid fossa and is related to tensor palati muscle. The medial surface of the medial pterygoid plate, it forms the lateral wall of the corresponding posterior nasal aperture. The posterior border of the medial pterygoid plate at its upper end, it splits to enclose a fossa here, which we call it as the scaphoid fossa. In its upper end, it also shows a small projection here, which we call it as the pterygoid tubercle, and it lies immediately below the posterior end of the pterygoid canal. The pharyngobasilar fascia is attached to its whole extent, while the superior constrictor muscle, it arises from its lower part only. A hook-like process at its lower end is called pterygoid hamulus. Tendon of tensor palati winds round this process. The superior constrictor and pterygomandibular raphe are also attached to it. An angular process projecting from the middle of this margin is called as processus tubarius. This posterior border above this process is called the notch of auditory tube. This processus tubarius as well as the notch, it supports the medial end of the auditory tube. The infratemporal surface of the greater wing of sphenoid is pentagonal in shape. It forms the roof of the infratemporal fossa. It gives origin to the upper head of lateral pterygoid muscle and is crossed by the deep temporal and mesenteric nerves. The infratemporal crest is the lateral limit of the infratemporal surface. And from the scaphoid fossa to the spine of the sphenoid here, we can see 4 foramina. The first one is foramen ovale. So it's an oval foramen and it transmits the mandibular nerve, accessory meningeal artery, lesser petrosal nerve and emissary vein. Behind that, we have the foramen spinosum. So it is situated near the spine of the sphenoid, posterolateral to the foramen ovale. The foramen of Vesalius is an infrequently seen foramen between the scaphoid fossa and the foramen ovale. The canaliculus innominatus, otherwise called as the foramen innominatum, is also infrequently seen between the foramen ovale and foramen spinosum. For structures passing through these foramens, you can see my video on the foramina of skull. The link for this video is given in the description box. The spine of the sphenoid is a projection from the posterior most part of the infratemporal surface of sphenoid bone. It is related laterally to the auriculotemporal nerve and medially it is related to chorda tympani and eustachian tube. The sphenomandibular ligament is attached to its tip, and the most posterior fibers of the tensor palati muscle originate from its anterior surface. The foramen lacerum is located between the sphenoid and apex of petrous temporal bone. It is named lacerum because of its irregular margin. The carotid canal and the pterygoid canal, they open into it. The sulcus tubae is a groove between the posteromedial margin of greater wing of sphenoid and the petrous part of temporal bone. The cartilaginous part of eustachian tube, also called auditory tube or pharyngotympanic tube, occupies this sulcus. The inferior surface of petrous part of temporal bone is located just behind the greater wing of sphenoid. Its anteromedial margin is serrated and it forms the apex of the petrous part. The quadrilateral area near the apex, it provides attachment to levator palati muscle. The lower opening of the carotid canal is located just behind the quadrilateral area, and the carotid canal, it runs forwards and medially in the petrous part and perforates its apex as the upper opening of carotid canal. The tympanic part of temporal bone is a triangular bone which occupies the angle between the petrous and the squamous part of temporal bone. Its anterior surface is related to parotid gland. The squamous part of temporal bone forms only a small part which is seen in the normal basalis. So here we see the articular tubercle, the anterior part of the mandibular fossa. The squamotympanic fissure, it marks the junction between the squamous and the tympanic part of temporal bones. Now let's move on to the posterior part of norma basalis. For the sake of convenience, this part is also divided into a median area and two lateral areas, the right and the left. In the median part, we see the foramen magnum, which is the largest foramen in the skull. It is a single foramen located in the lowest part of the posterior cranial fossa. It is oval in shape and it forms a communication between the cranial cavity and the vertebral canal. The anterior atlanto-occipital membrane is attached to its anterior margin, and the posterior atlanto-occipital membrane is attached to its posterior margin. The lateral margins provide attachment to alar ligaments. The external occipital crest extends from the posterior margin of the foramen magnum to the external occipital protuberance. The upper margin of ligamentum nuchae is attached to it. The external occipital protuberance, we see it at the end of this external occipital crest. Trapezius is attached to it superiorly and the ligamentum nuchae is attached inferiorly. Now let's see the features on the lateral part of the posterior part of Norma Basalis. The occipital condyles are located lateral to the anterior half of foramen magnum. Each is oval and convex to articulate with the concave superior articular process of atlas to form the atlanto-occipital joint. The condylar fossa is present just behind the occipital condyle, and sometimes it shows the presence of this condylar canal for the emissary vein from sigmoid sinus. The hypoglossal canal, the outer opening of which is located lateral to the anterior part of the condyle. The larger portion is formed by the squamous part of temporal bone. The superior nuchal line is a well-defined ridge which extends laterally from the external occipital protuberance on each side. Its medial one-third provides origin to the trapezius, while its lateral one-third receives the insertion of sternocleidomastoid as well as splenius capitis. Then on each side, from the middle of the external occipital crest, there is another ridge known as the inferior nuchal line. The jugular foramen is an interosseous foramen situated between the anterior margin of jugular process of occipital bone and posterior margin of petrous part of temporal bone at the petro-occipital suture. The inferior surface of jugular process of occipital bone is the area just lateral to the occipital condyle behind the jugular foramen. It gives attachment to rectus capitis lateralis. The styloid process is a conical projection below the tympanic part of temporal bone. It is directed downwards, forwards and slightly medially. It provides attachment to 3 muscles and 2 ligaments, which together we call it as the styloid apparatus. The 3 muscles attached to it are the styloglossus, which is attached anteriorly, the stylohyoid posteriorly, and the stylopharyngeus medially. The ligaments are stylomandibular, which is attached laterally, and stylohyoid, which is attached at the tip. The styloid process is interposed between the parotid gland laterally and the internal jugular vein medially. 2 structures, that is the facial nerve, crosses it superficially near the base, and the external carotid artery near the tip. The mastoid process is a prominent projection from the temporal bone posterolateral to the styloid process. The medial aspect of this process shows a deep groove called the digastric notch. And this notch, it provides attachment to the posterior bony of digastric. Medial to the digastric notch, there is another groove for the occipital artery. Here there is a small foramen which may be present sometimes, which we call it as the mastoid foramen, through which the emissary vein passes. The stylomastoid foramen is present between the styloid process and the mastoid process. For the structures passing through all these foramen, you can go through my video on the foramina of the skull, the link for which is given in the description box. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Norma Basalis of the skull. From the occipital bone to the sphenoid and all the critical foramina in between, understanding the skull base is essential for mastering both anatomy and its clinical connections. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe and share it. Got questions or topics you would like me to cover next? Drop them in the comments below. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring.